With the college football playoff semifinals now set and the quarterfinals in the books, there are several questions that need to be answered, but yet there is a couple that were already answered. One being, did the committee get it wrong? Stay tuned to find out on Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you so much for joining us on another edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Of course, you're gabbing with the one and only Mr. CeeLo and my friend Brad, of course, and I'm sure many of you, but he reached out to me and he was wondering why I didn't have an update show before all this went down. Well, guys, I've been under the weather, so I hope all of you are doing well. I don't know if it's a bug going around, but whatever it is, it's very cold down in the deep south, and I'm sure it is all over the other continental parts of the continental U.S. So please stay bundled up, and if you're under the weather, please stay inside and seek medical attention if you need it. Actually, got two really sad pieces of news to pass on. Of course, you all knew what postponed this wonderful matchup between the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Georgia Bulldogs down in New Orleans was the tragic incident that took place that took the lives of, I believe, 15 individuals and injured dozens more. Our heart here at Gridiron Gab and all of my listeners and all of you guys that are affected by it, that are listening, we send our deepest condolences and our prayers go out to you as you guys find it in your hearts to forgive and recover from this situation. We have nothing but love and sympathy for you all in this tough time. As well as we pass along, although he was a competitor on the opposite sideline, Georgia coach Kirby Smart lost his father this morning due to complications and surgery that he had in a fall while in New Orleans. Don't know the details of the complications, but I know what it's like to lose a parent. Don't know if many of you do. It is one of the most painful situations you could ever endure. It most certainly coming off of a situation where, as a former coach myself, losing a game is very tough. It's winning a game is the highest of highs, but losing one is also one of the lowest of lows. And then you lose possibly a foundation of your entire life on the same 72-hour stretch is not easy at all. So, as I said, even though you guys know I bleed Notre Dame gold and blue, I also am a humanitarian and I'm a man of God. I also am very hurt by this news, and I wish the Kirby Smart family the best, and our prayers will be going out to you because I know what it's like to lose a parent. But guys, join me in a few moments of moment of silence for the victims of New Orleans as well as the Smart family in their time of loss. Thank you, guys. As I said, I hope you guys are doing great. I am doing much better now. I'm starting to get my strength back. I've been to the gym. And hopefully be able to go right after I shoot this show and get in a little bit more. I know I'm not overdoing it. I'm just trying to catch back up. You want to get back to where you are. But got a few things from my man Brad. He has go Dawgs. He thinks it's gonna be a big game, and like I told you, brother. First of all, I want to address all of the Georgia Bulldog fans that said that this is on Mike Bobo. Look, a lot of people are going to say you don't want to kick a man while he's down, and that man being Kirby Smart. Look, if Kirby Smart wanted the football run, all I had to do is tell Bobo to run it. So before we start sitting here questioning Mike Bobo's play calling, at some point you got to address the elephant in the room is why is Kirby Smart not pushing the envelope? Well, maybe that's not what he wants to do. Just saying. I mean, it didn't make sense to me why you saw Georgia throw the ball 32 times and they only ran it 29 times. Now, I think that was another issue that I think a lot of people had was the fact that Georgia ran it 29 times and there weren't a lot of runs that Georgia tried to get the outside. Now, this is the problem that I see. They did try to run it outside. A lot of the arrogant SEC commentators, including Scam Newton and Paul Weinbaum, had all you Georgia fans gassed. And I think I saw a podcast today where if I find it, I'll put it on the show. The problem we have is all the SEC fan bases, including the Georgia fan bases, got you Georgia fans gassed up. Now, I didn't call the game. I felt like Notre Dame was going to play the same style of ball that they played against Georgia Tech. I mean, that Georgia had, that gave Georgia problems against Georgia Tech. Something I saw in that game, because Georgia was dominating the line of scrimmage to start with. It's not like the Georgia Tech game where Tech came out and they went down the field, and Georgia relentlessly could not stop them. But one thing I saw was that when Notre Dame tried to run the ball outside, they got the edge. And I think ultimately what it was is I think Georgia was a little bit shocked at the fact that Notre Dame was just going to run right at them early on. And I think a lot of naysayers didn't understand why that was, because the runs that Riley Leonard had, he had several late in the game where they were getting outside. I don't know whether Georgia was just winded, gassed, or what. Because when you look at the statistical aspect of it, you got Notre Dame owning the football nearly 32 minutes to Georgia's 28 minutes. Probably the one statistic that would stick out is the passing yards, 234 to 90. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, are you going to mention the drop pass? I am going to mention the drop pass. And the reality of it was, the truth is, yes, that was a play that could have gone for a huge play because Xavier Watts was beat over the top. Now, would it have gone for a touchdown? Not doubt it. But the truth of the matter is that was a huge deal. Now, as for the gentleman, and I'm not going to mention his name because the fact of the matter is if Georgia fans are going to use this kid as a scapegoat, you still had a whole half to go. I would venture to say you had a whole quarter and a half. Maybe even a whole quarter. You can blame Kirby for what happened because the truth of the matter is the game was 6-3. You should have went in the locker room only down 6-3. And arguably, you don't even know if this kick return goes back. Had Notre Dame not gotten the football back on the strip sack from R.J. Oben, who had arguably the game of a lifetime. All these guys for Notre Dame were just good. And see, this is a humbling experience for all Georgia fans. Because the reality of it is, when you get to a point where you don't think you're beatable, when you think you're unbeatable, you start to miss kinks in the armor. Defensive line is big, but it's not as fast as it's been. Linebackers not nearly as pursuing as they're talking about the guy Williams. He had a couple of good plays in the first quarter, and he vanished after that. Completely vanished. But and I'm not saying it's like Notre Dame dominated the total yardage because they did not. I mean, we look at the way the game played out. Georgia had 2 turnovers. And how many times have I told you guys on this show, if you have 2 turnovers, in order for you to make that up, you got to look in the yards category, and you have to have almost an extra 100 yards per turnover. 100 yards more than the opposing team. Georgia only had 52 yards more gained than the Irish. So when you have that kind of performance, which in all fairness, I'm not going to sit here and say Gunnar Stockton was the problem because he was not. I'm not going to try to repeat everything that I'm seeing on other news outlets, but the reality of it is Gunnar Stockton did what he was supposed to. I will say this, do I think Mike Bobo put him in a lot of really good positions? I don't think so, because I think ultimately what Georgia thought was this was a kind of I saw Georgia look like Notre Dame was supposed to look like, and I saw Notre Dame look like what Georgia was supposed to look like. A football team that controlled the line of scrimmage for 3.5 quarters. No, excuse me, 3 quarters. Because Notre Dame and Georgia were about neck and neck, and other than the fact that Georgia was able to get some plays in the passing game. And ultimately, I think both teams were looking very good speed-wise on the back end front. But the difference is that Notre Dame never challenged Georgia's secondary. They never went at it. Denbroke never wanted to challenge the Malachi Starks and company. But what people can sit there and say what they want about Bobo. Bobo challenged Notre Dame's secondary, and he got a couple of victories on it. And needless to say, when you can do that, that's when you know that you've got a pretty good offensive scheme going. The difference is that Georgia could not execute when they had to. When they got inside the red zone, they looked a lot like us when we played. They looked like a lot like Notre Dame when they played Ohio State in that game that Notre Dame should have won. But in the reality of it is, this was one of those where everybody said, okay, Gunnar Stockton starting, but Kirby Smart's going to have them ready. See, you can't just consistently, you got to go by what your eyes tell you. And see, this is my problem with scam. You're sitting there disrespecting Notre Dame and you ain't watched an Irish game. Then you want to sit there and you want to make this just absolutely ridiculous claim because it means more in the SEC. Bruh. Like it don't mean more in other conferences, you dummy. What kind of ignorance is that? Name me a football team in the Southeastern Conference that would fire you for losing a rivalry game. Team done been to 2 college football playoffs. Name me one team in the Southeastern Conference that would fire your butt for losing to its biggest rival. I'll wait. And do something about them clothes, man. Oh. I mean, it's bad enough they got you on there and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. But then to sit here and say, Notre Dame don't play nobody. Well, the SEC puts 3 high schools on its schedule every freaking year. Heck, you playing Alabama A&M, Jacksonville State, Mercer. Gab out, Mercer Bears. Y'all played y'all's butts off. Valdosta State. But then you got the nerve to say Army, Navy. Put them on the schedule. Scam. If they so easy, put them on the schedule. I can't remember. I'm gonna do some research on that. I want to find out the last time the Southeastern Conference played Army or Navy. Y'all can sit here and schedule Mercer, Alcorn State, Kennesaw, but you won't put Army or Navy. But you can chastise somebody like Notre Dame who actually puts them on the schedule when they undefeated. You ain't even got the room. I don't even want to hear Scam sit there or anybody in the comments say, we beat Navy or Army. Till you put them on the schedule, don't talk about it. Be about it. It's easy to sit there and watch somebody else have the guts to go out there and play Army or Navy. Last I checked, they won a bowl game. They just beat an SEC football team. Sorry, Oklahoma. So while y'all sit here and run your mouth about, Army, Navy, I didn't ever see your boys go out there against them. Scam. It's easy to sit there and say somebody else could do it when. Get out there and do it. Get out there and do it. I love the fact that you can sit there and talk down on another football team. What if your kid was in the Naval Academy? Huh? Oh, yeah, it'd be a different story. You sitting here talking to a father. And that's what I did not like about Ryan Clark talking talking back at Cam, because Cam is sitting here. Ryan Clark knows this Notre Dame team. Cam ain't watched a single game. All he knows is like a lot of backseat football, college football heads. They look at the box scores and they look at highlights. I can honestly tell you this is the first Georgia team that it looked like all phases on defense, except the secondary, belonged to them. Then you look at the offensive side of the ball. I told Brad this, and guys, I have said this all season. This is probably the worst running Georgia football team in history, because I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what they have in their backfield. And I honestly believe that was a lot of the reason why Georgia did not run the football. I know some people are going to say, well, ETN was good, but you had to get him out of the portal. I mean, the truth of the matter is this is not a Georgia football team that, as much as I dislike them, not because of it's mostly because of their fan base. You're looking at a football team that ran the ball 29 times for 62 yards, and then you look at Notre Dame, who ran it 37 times for 157. Even Georgia tried variations of putting Gunnar Stockton in motion and Trevor Etienne in motion, and it still didn't work. The difference was Notre Dame's guards were a lot lighter, but they were more athletic. You don't see a lot of Georgia pulling. You have seen it before in the past. I've seen a couple of games where they're playing overmatched squads and they'll run a pull or two. Probably for the first time in a long time, I saw Notre Dame get very creative. And I know a lot of people are going to want to talk about the bad calls. I mean, Notre Dame got some bad calls. Georgia did as well. No calls as well. So, we can talk about the officiating if we want to. Ordinarily, probably one of the biggest calls that went against Georgia fans, they want to say it was that false start that the receiver's in motion. Well, let's look on it on the other bright side. The one that they called back that was a fourth down that would have been a first down for Notre Dame because they said two guys were in motion. He wasn't in motion. The tight end got set. If the tight end gets set by rule, the receiver can go in motion, and he does not have to have a second pause in order that he does not have to reset or get set directly. He can just bounce. As long as that tight end gets set first. Tight end gets set first, he paused. Then he went in motion. You can watch the replay. It's uploaded. But and then of course Faison makes the grab on fourth down, and that would have gave us a first down to hang on to the clock, but ultimately it went against us. But needless to say, there were a lot of calls that were questionable ones, but it did not change the outcome of the game in my perception. I think ordinarily you would look at it and say, oh, well, here we go. But Notre Dame was penalized 10 times to Georgia's 5, so Georgia fans, don't sit there and cry about the penalties. You were at least penalized. And ordinarily, like I said, I was on the of the attitude that Georgia was going to pound away at us. And when I saw we stood our ground on those first couple of plays, I was very happy. I was ecstatic, and I was very impressed. But then as soon as we got the football, and you could see that defense dig in, and they were prepared for what Notre Dame was going to bring to them. And ultimately, when you start dealing with when you got two powers colliding, and ultimately one has been on this stage and they've achieved much great success, and you've got one that is tending to reach that part. It goes back to what Arnold said in Pumping Iron years ago. He said, one of the guys was antagonizing him and teasing him. He said, the king of the hill can only go down. And then Arnold adds, he says, or stay up. He says, but the wolf on the hill is not as hungry as the wolf climbing the hill. Notre Dame looked like that hungry wolf. I'm not saying Georgia wasn't hungry for it, but you got to think, when you're used to hearing everybody talk about you and this, that, and other, sometimes you start to drink your own Kool-Aid. And a lot of Georgia fans are reflective of maybe what their players were thinking. When you get accustomed to something, that's just like, I'm going to be honest with you, this is a huge win for me. I love it. I could get used to winning. Because my thing is, I've always been good at what I've done in my life. I've always been successful. I don't take defeat well. And see, this is something for all you guys out there. If you're accustomed to winning, you don't like losing. So that's why you have that fear of losing. And see, this is where this is where I believe this will make Georgia better. Is they will have now an innate fear of failure. Not necessarily a failure itself, but a fear that you don't do enough so that you do fail. You want to go out and do your next level best so that you don't fail. And if you give your very best and you fail, that's okay. But if you go out here and you don't know what failure tastes like, you're not going to play with your hair on fire. You're not going to play with that sense of desperation. Because I'm going to be honest with you, it never felt like I was sitting with a couple of friends while we were watching this game. I was sitting there telling, she was a Georgia fan, and I kept telling her, "Oh, it's coming. It's coming." But in my mind, I was sitting there thinking, is it going to come? I kept waiting, especially when it got into the fourth quarter, and I was like, I kept yelling at the TV, said, "Riley, let the clock run down." And every time Georgia touched the football, I was sitting there thinking, oh God, here they come. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, okay, here's his biased take. Well, here's the reality. Georgia is not looking like the football team that they've had. And I said this all year. Normally, when Georgia goes into an issue, it's just like Alabama. Alabama used to, if they had quarterback problems or they had made the wrong mistake in game planning, they had the running game to lean on. Alabama doesn't have the running game to lean on, and neither does Georgia. Kirby Smart's going to have to go back to the drawing table now that Carson Beck is gone. I think a lot of what happened with Georgia is that Carson Beck was a Heisman candidate. He did throw for almost 4,000 yards, so you got to look at it from the standpoint of we had to get him his Heisman numbers or get him his NFL stock up. So now with that gone, and I'm not saying Gunnar Stockton's not going to be that dude, but I think ultimately the way this is going to work out, Georgia is going to probably go in the portal, get themselves the best running back that is going to be out there, get some things figured out on that offensive line. And they're probably working right now. Well, he probably gave him a couple of days off, being that the situations the way it happened. He'll probably take a few weeks to get to himself. And then they'll be back to work. But as I said, Georgia not the same team, and the fans need to stop drinking the Kool-Aid. You need to really analyze the game. Really analyze the game. Because as I said before, Notre Dame's coming, and there are other teams in your conference coming. No, not Ole Miss, and we'll get into that too. But Notre Dame really handily made its mark in this game. 23-10 was the final. And like I said, I'm only on top of SEC dumb boys. In all fairness, I'll give Paul Feinbaum his credit. He did go on national television, and he did back off the notion that Notre Dame is not just a Catholic school anymore. He did back off that Alabama was this and Georgia was this and that. And ultimately, this is what it needs to be. Your fan base needs to stop running around here chanting SEC. Because this proved it right here. You ain't that so-called, we're standing high and above everybody.
It's not funny, Ed.
And people like Wine Bum, and Scam need to take that out their mouth. It means more. Man, stop drinking the Kool-Aid. Oh, it means more? They said in Charlotte you should have been reading more film. That meant more too. Need you in no dang weight room. Yeah, I know. I had to say that because when you make that kind of statement and you basically say in a nutshell that other programs don't need to be there, and then here you are, the very programs that you said weren't supposed to be there are here. My thing is you don't get no authority on either one of them. And what I mean by that is when they ask you a question, like when they ask about Notre Dame, if Notre Dame pulls out the win over Penn State, you don't have a right to even speak on it. Because according to you, they shouldn't be here. So guess what? You don't need to be here. Just saying. Let me know what you guys think about the Notre Dame 23-10 victory over Georgia. This was their fourth meeting. This is Notre Dame's first ever victory in this rivalry. And I know what people are going to say, a rivalry you have to win some. Well, it's only 3-1, ladies and gentlemen, and Georgia ducked us for almost 30 years. Sorry, Brad, but it's true. But make sure you comment down below. Please be nice, because I don't want to be mean. As well as let me know whether you enjoyed the game or not. Whether you think Georgia's just they're going to just rebuild, or what if you think Georgia's just going to rebuild and be back? What do you think, Notre Dame's just lucky? Are you impressed with Notre Dame? What do you think Georgia needs to do to get things back on track? What are the keys to Notre Dame's victory over Penn State? Like I said, you guys give me a gab out, I will give you a gab out on air. Also, go to my Facebook pages at Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Check out the other things that we got going on over there, from polls to questions and opportunities to chit chat with me, Mr. CeeLo. Also, go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo, where we will begin shooting live shows possibly as soon as this spring. Now, I know it's not going to do much good with the season being over, but Mr. CeeLo's got to work some kinks out, and we'll definitely be trying to go live once the season kicks off. How about that? But until the next time. Oh, by the way, I hope you guys had a wonderful, happy new year, and I hope you guys are safe. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.